In the Wild West era of Red Dead Redemption 2, there are several dangerous gangs which haunt townsfolk, settlers, and which make the job of lawmen harder day by day. Some of the gangs you may know are the O'Driscolls, who ransack towns and prey on the weak, haunting the northern states, or there are the Del Lobos, pouring in from over the border into the south of the US, killing and pillaging everything they can get their hands on. However, there is a gang that you may not have heard of, called the Talila Jetty Gang. This gang is one that has stayed alive for decades and outlived even the Van der Linde gang. They parade from town to town, pulling off robberies and doing as they see fit. However, to find out how they became such a success, it is important to see how they got their start up. Without further ado, let's get into the story of the greatest gang you've never heard of, the Talila Jetty Gang. The Talila Jetty Gang started in the town of Talila Jetty. But Nikita, where is the town of Talila Jetty in the game? Well, if you're a Red Dead Redemption 2 enthusiast, then you might know about this little thing called the Leaks of the Game's map that came out a bit before the game ever came out. On that map, which looks very similar to the map we have now in the place of Van Horn, is the town of Talila Jetty. If paying more attention to the leaked map, you can see that it is in fact a gang hideout. Therefore, we can imagine that originally it would be something like Tumbleweed was in Red Dead Redemption 1. Understanding that, we can come to the conclusion that the early days of the gang were rough and they were surrounded by stray killers. If Talila Jetty was as tough as a place as Van Horn is in game, then we can see that a gang that came out of such a town had not only faced adversity but killed everyone in their path. Now that we know where they came from, let's go forward in time and see the legacy that they left behind after their bloody end in 1907. If looking at the Blackwater Ledger number 74, one of the articles is titled Talila Jetty Gang Killed. It reads: United States Marshal Fulkerton received a dispatch from Silver Springs indicating that after years of evading capture, the Talila Jetty Gang was chased down after a brazen bank robbery in broad daylight. After a series of outrages including the killing of several women and elders, officers placed 200 men in pursuit of the gang, which was overtaken near Anadarko. A combination force of Cherokee Indians and a militia formed after the bank robbery pursued the gang to a cave in the bluffs south of the area, where a spectacular gun battle took place, killing several officers. After a period of quiet, one man entered the cave where he found a gravely wounded William Bishop, bleeding out next to deceased henchmen Harold Sutton and James Shaw. From this article, we can see that this gang of bloodhounds have left quite a trail of misery in their wake, despite that they were still evading capture and doing it really well in fact. However, even the best get caught at some point. But this gang didn't go down easy. After decades on the run, lasting even longer than the Van der Linde and O'Driscoll gangs, they were put on the radar of the law once more because of a series of bloodthirsty events. Just like the Van der Linde gang, they robbed a considerable amount of money and butchered several folks. The Talila Jetty gang were trailed by hundreds of men and an addition of Cherokee Indians, while the Van der Linde gang ended up disbanding when cornered in Beaver's Hollow by Pinkertons. This gang of killers, however, stood their ground, taking officers with them to their graves. If we're to take what the article says, then this gang, or what was left of it in its last days, were made up of 3 men who were William Bishop, its leader, and his henchmen Harold Sutton and James Shaw. Looking at all these factors from their humble and gritty beginnings to their gory end, it is definitely understandable why they would be a threat in the west and east. But how does the Talila Jetty Gang compare to the other ruthless gangs we find in the game? The O'Driscolls, taking their name from the leader Colm O'Driscoll, are very known in the frontier and have been active for a decade as of 1899. When it comes to recruiting, Colm O'Driscoll values quantity over quality, so there are very few requirements to join this gang. All that is required is the ability to ride a horse, shoot a gun, and pillage without thinking. There is no difference in the loyalty of the leadership to their men. Each individual member is replaceable, and Colm seems to have an easy time finding men to replace the ones he has lost. Their reputation is known far and wide, but they aren't an organized force like many other gangs out there because of them not having a structure and being spread over many states in the game. Now comparing them to the Tala Jetty gang, who according to the leaked map hold a whole town as their hideout in Roanoke Ridge, then we can assume that their force is at the same level, if not more than the O'Driscolls, and as they're not spread out sparingly, then it means they're organized well. The fact that the gang lasted until 1907 shows their loyalty, but also them being able to withstand any foe that comes their way. The Skinner brothers are a gang of vicious assassins and robbers who roam around hunting and murdering everything in their way. The Skinners are infamous for their horrifying tortures and cruel sadistic deeds. They are more akin to a cult of insane serial killers than an outlaw gang. Among other things, they have been known to roast, flay, dismember, scalp, and disembowel people alive. Unlike many gangs, they have no base of operations on account of their nomadic lifestyles. Instead, living in primitive camps, either their own or ones seized from their victims. They're extremely vicious and powerful, but only in the region of tall trees, where they are able to masquerade and don't dare to expand their reach into other counties or states. The Skinner brothers may be more ruthless in their acts and may seem like they have more members, but they're simply concentrated in a very small area, making it seem like their numbers are many, but in fact, there are not as many as they may seem. On the other hand, the Skinner brothers are definitely able to strike fear into their enemies better than the Tala Jetty gang, who only involve themselves in simple pillaging, but also tend to terrorize townfolk once in a while, as we saw in the article on them. Being violent and outlaws by nature, the group is well known throughout Lemoyne for its murders and robberies of both law-abiding citizens and people from the north. The organization that the Lemoyne Raiders possess is something no other gang has. However, compared to the Tala Jetty gang, they are much older and weaker men who are beyond their times. Similarly to the Skinner brothers, they are also concentrated in a single area, being the state of Lemoyne, but their influence runs deep from the swamps to the fields of Lemoyne. However, the Tala Jetty gang are able to hold their ground well in the single town of Tala Jetty, but also move around and evade the law, as we find out in the article. So, with these comparisons finished, we can clearly state that the Tala Jetty gang is definitely the most deadliest gang, which we sadly do not get a taste of in the game. However, putting together clues that we get from newspaper articles, leaked maps, and our own knowledge, we can uncover a gang shrouded because of their merciless and bloodthirsty acts. Hope you all enjoyed this deep dive into the lesser known Red Dead Redemption, and I'll see y'all later.